Okay, so last session we have seen what is the operator, right? We have seen arithmetic operators plus subtraction, multiplication, division, modules, increment, decrement. Also we have seen comparison operator as well. Equal to, does not equal to, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. Logical operators also we have seen. And also we have seen if condition, if else condition, nested if else condition. Nested means one condition inside the another condition. Okay, and we have seen switch condition. If we don't have exact clarity on which input I'll take, okay, which input I'll get, but I know the range of that input, specific input, then we can use switch condition to handle multiple input. Okay, or you can say to handle or random input. Okay, so on that type we can use switch case, right? So same way we have loops. So loops, what do you mean by the loops? Loops can execute. Loops means, if you see, loops can execute a block of a code as long as a specified condition is reached. Okay, loops can execute a block of code as long as a specified condition has reached. For example, if I'll open this UiPath, okay, and now for example I want to write my name, right? So for that I'll use a write line. Okay, inside this write line I'll simply put, for example, UiPath. Okay, and if I'll execute this, so I will get, or I will get result as a UiPath at once. Okay, but same thing I want to perform on a multiple basis. So if I want to execute, if I want to write this UiPath name multiple times, okay, like 10 times, or you can say 20 times, right? Or you can say 30 times or 40 times. That means if I want to execute the same condition, if I want to execute same code on a multiple type, or you can say on a multiple you can say way, right? So how we can do that, right? So what I need to do, on the regular basis, what I need to do, I need to again print write line. Again, it's the same way, I need to use the same sequence, or I need to use same this condition on a multiple basis, or you can say multiple time, right? Like, so for example 10 times, so I need to use this on a 10 time, right? So I need to write this write line activity 10 times if I want to output as a result as output as a 10 times. So I need to execute the same code at a 10 times. Okay, but this is not a good practice, or good you can say and in programming languages this is not a good practice, right? When we create any programs, my code needs to be in a, you can say, in a very scripts manner, or uh, we need to create code in a very lesser manner, right? So for that we have loop, right? So as I said, loops can execute a block of a code as long as a specified condition is reached. Loops are handy because they are save time, reduce error, and they make code more readable. Loop can execute a block of a code as long as a specified condition is. For example, now what I'll do, same activity I'll perform with help of the loops, right? So we have there are many types of loops. We have while loop, we have do while loop, we have for each loop, right? So this, basically these three loops are used in UiPath: for each loop, while loop, and do while loop. So first we will see while loop and do while loop. So for example, while loop, right? So see, if you see while loop and do while loop, right? And if I'll hover this while loop, or if I hover this cursor on this loop, if you see, executes content activities while the condition is true, right? What I'll do now, uh, I'll just delete this. Okay, and this is the flow chart. This is the flow chart, right? I will tell you what is the flow chart and what is the sequence, what is the difference between flow chart and the sequence as well later on. Okay, now if you see, this is loops. If I'll double click on this, this while loop looks like in this way. We have body and we have condition. There are two types, or there are two parts. One is the condition and one is the body. Body, where we can write the code, right? For example, in our case, this is my code which I need to execute multiple times, for example UiPath. Okay, now this is very important one, this condition is very important one. Okay, here on the basis of this condition the below body part will get executes. Okay, so as what is my condition, or if you see again, I'll just mention, or I'll just see, while executes contained activity while the condition is true, while the condition is true, until and unless my condition will get false, then my loops will break. Otherwise, if this condition will go on true, or you can say true phase, then this write line will executes on n number of times. I will tell you how we can do that. For example, in this condition, right, for example, what I'll do, I'll take one assign activity here, right, and in this assign activity, this is my assign activity, right, and what I'll do, var int, right, the same variable I'll used, I'll create one variable var int, right, var int, variable type is equal to integer 32, right, and this variable int, right, this var int equal to, I'll just make this var int value is equal to 1, right, and I'll just mention var int equal to 1, right, and inside this, one second guys, okay, and here what I'll do, now I have just create one variable like var int, and I am assigning this value 1 is equal to var int, and inside this body I'll just write line. Okay, so as I said, I need to print this write line on, you can say, multiple ways or multiple bases, right. So here I'll just, in this write line I'll just UiPath. Okay, UiPath. Now if I'll execute this you can say code, we'll see what output we will get. So now if you see this UiPath will execute, this write line will execute, you can say it's executing continuously, right, because my code is inside the while loop, and as I said, until and unless my condition will gets false, until and unless that time this code will execute. You can say this is in the infinite loop, my loop is executing again and again and again, because this condition is in a true state, or this condition will be always be a true, because we have this var int and this value 1 is equal to, the var int is equal to 1, it's a simple condition, as a true condition, or it's a valid condition. That's what my what was my aim, I want to execute this UiPath you can say name multiple times, this 50% or you can say 60% it executing, but somewhere we need to stop this loop as well. As I said, if I want to execute this condition at least 10 times, or you can say 5 times, so that after 5 times or 6 times or 10 times my loops will stop. Okay, so to break that we need to put some condition over there as well, right. What we need to do, we need to put some false condition, or we can say after some you can say execution, we need to stop the loop as well, we need to break that loop. That is a very important you can say concept in this looping, right. We need to break that loop, right. So how we can break that, right. So what I'll do, I'll simply use one more assign activity here, right. What I'll do, I'll simply use one more assign activity here, and here I'll just simply make some condition like, now var int, right, var int, now var int is equal, what is the value of the var int, it's an 1, which is fine. So here I'll just use 5, this is also valid condition, right, because 1 is less than 5, this is also valid condition, right. So here what I'll do, I'll use again this var int and var int plus 1, right. Now what happened, I'll just execute this, I'll debug this code. Okay, I'll just debug this code. Okay, for example, for debugging purpose we'll use step into. Okay, Now if you see, I'll step into now var int. What is the value of var int? As I said, see, when we used debugger at left hand side, whichever variable is used, that means we are seeing, or we can see the runtime execution values here. For example, now var int, what is the value of this var int? Initially it was 0. If I'll execute this, and if you see var int, the value of the var int is equal to 1. Okay, 1 is less than 5, that means it's an valid condition, or it's an true. Basically this output of this condition is true. Again, if I'll go into step into, right, again if I'll go into step into, and if I'll again go into this step into, now this UiPath executes, or this write line activity gets executed. So UiPath is written here, right? Now what happened? This var int is equal to 1, right? 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, right? So again I'll use step into. Now if you see, this var int value gets changed. It's an 2, right? Now it's an 2. Again 2 is less than 5, right? It's incorrect way, right? So again I'll just click on this step into. Again it's step into. Now it's 3, right? So step into, right? Step into, and now it's 4. 4 is less than 5, yes, correct. So again step into, and now my var int value is like 5. So 5 is less than 5, it's an false condition. This condition will give us as a result as a false. Okay, now if I'll execute this, now my this loop will break, and my cursor or my execution will go out of my loop. Okay, so my aim, what was my aim here? My aim was I want to execute my this write line like 4 times, or you can say 5 times as per my condition. So that I have achieved here with help of the loops, right? So loops is playing a very important role in any automation project. In automation perspective, if you want to see, if for example if you want to open a particular web application and I want to put some login ID and password, but sometimes if we hit any particular application's link over there, so sometime it will take some times, right? So what we can do here, we can put, or we can give some retry mechanism with help of the while loop over there, right? First time if we give 2 minutes, and until that 2 minutes, if I'm not able to getting the response from that website, so again what we'll do with help of this while loop, we can again give the retry mechanism over there, right? So again 2 minutes we will wait for that. Again after like 4 minutes also we are not getting that, so again we can give again a retry mechanism with help of this while loop. So again we will wait for another 2 minutes, like so. Likewise we can perform the same activity with multiple times, right? So it's very important. While loops is very important concept which we can use in any automation project, right? So we'll again go with this loop. So as I said, loops can execute a block of a code. So as I said, loops can execute a block of a code. So a block of a code body. So loops can execute a block of a code as long as a specified condition is reached, right? As long as a specified condition is reached, as long as a specified condition is reached. That means if we get result as a true, then and then only I will go inside this body. Okay, so why loops is important? So loops are handy because they save times, right? Now with help of the single loops, I'll you can say I'll execute this activity multiple times. That means I'll save my times as well, right? I save my times, reduce error. If instead of using multiple activities, if I'll use a simple activity or a single activity, obviously we will reduce error as well, and they make code more readable. It's a very, anyone can, any layman person, or any layman, or you can say anyone can read this code easily, right? It's just straightforward, right? So the while loop through a block of a code as long as a specified condition is a true. As I said, if we got the true, then will the execution or this executor go inside this body loop, and if the condition will get false, my loop will get, my cursor or my execution go outside my loop. So just remember, my loops always needs a, you can say, breaking condition. Otherwise what happened if I am not putting this, right, and I have for example a big program, right, and after this while loop I have put it so many codes, and if I am not breaking my loop, right, and for example I am not breaking my loop, I am not putting this condition, right, and if I'll run my program, this code or this while loop executes again and again until and unless I'll forcefully stop my bot, or until and unless I'll forcefully stop the whole execution of the UI path, right, because on at the memory sites these loops will execute again and again, again and again. Infinite loop we can consider as an infinite loop. So two things we need to consider if or when we use the loops. First, which on the which basis we need to use loop. You can say retry mechanism, or you can say if I want to execute any condition multiple times, then we can use loop. And the second major important thing, or the second thing is we need to break that loop at certain point. These 2 points which we need to remember when we use looped. Okay, so this is all about, you can say, while loop. So we have one more loop, right, so we have one more loop called as the do while loop, right. This is the loop, this is the while loop, right, while loop, and this is the do while loop. There are little difference on this while loop and the do while loop, right. If you see, while loop have looks like this. First it will have this condition, and the second thing they have the body here, right. But in do while loop we have first body and second condition, opposite to the do while loop. This execution will happen opposite to while loop. So same example we'll take here, right. I'll just disable this, right. Okay, now what happened, I'll just comment out this sequence. What do you mean by this comment out, right? Comment out means I have just ignore the, if you see, once I comment out, you will see this activity gets ignored. That means now this code will available here, and I have just commented out this code is available here, but when I'll run this bot, this code will not considered. Okay, this it's like I have deleted this code like that. Okay, so same example we will take, right. So for this body, what I'll do, I'll take right line, okay, and inside this right line I'll just put UIPATH, okay, and here as I know var int is equal to 1, right. So I'll use var int, I'll just put less than, you can say, 4, okay, var int less than 4, and same increment, because I need to break that loop, otherwise this will get executes again and again, it will go in the infinite loop. So for that I need to break that code. So here I'll just use again one more you can say assign activity. Okay, inside this assign activity I'll use var int, right, var int is equal to var int plus 1, in this way. Okay, now if I'll again debug the code, or if I'll run this code, so what is the main difference between do loop, or you can say do while loop, or the while loop? So if I'll execute this condition, if you see, I'll first execute this right line any without checking any condition. So in short, when we used do while loop, so in this case my condition will execute at least once, right, because I am not checking any condition before this body, right. So for example UIPATH, right, for example step into, now this UIPATH will get execute first, right. Now it's increment, and now if you see 2, right, again if I'll go and if I'll execute this again 2 3, right, now again now it's 4, for example, right. So this is like it will go out, and if I'll put UIPATH, so I will get 3 times only, right. If I'll reduce this count, or if I'll just, it's for example if I'll reduce like 1, for example, just considering the 1, right. So if I'll execute this, okay, step into, right, step into, And if you see, I am not checking any condition here, right? So I'll just click on this step into. Now it will execute once. As I said, do while loop will execute the code or whichever sequence or whichever flow we have written inside this body. It will execute once, at least once, because we are not checking any condition before that condition or before that, or the in the do while loop we can, if you say do while, that means first do something, right? First do something and then put the while condition, right? So if you see step into, now it's increased, or you can say, and now it will go directly outside this loop, right? Because I have just initially I have just give the condition like where int is equal to 1. Got it? So this is the main difference between, you can say, while loop and the do while loop. When, for example, if on automation perspective, if we want to execute some condition at least once, and then we need to perform some repetitive code, or you can say if you want to execute the same code multiple times, then on that time we can use do while loop, right? Do while also used in many cases or many conditions, right? So while loop and the do while loop, sometime interviewer asks the question as well, so what is the difference between while loop and the do while loop? So while loop first check the condition, and on the basis of the condition it will execute the code, or it will execute the body. But in the do while loop, at least once the condition will, the body will execute once, and later while loop will execute, or condition will execute, right? So in this way do while loop and while loop will work.